You will meet someone difficult today. Not maybe. Not if you're unlucky. You will, a slow reply, a rude email, a colleague who takes credit, a stranger who cuts the line. It's already on your calendar, even though no one wrote it there. This is about deciding, before it happens, who you'll be when it does. Almost 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor sat down before dawn and wrote himself a note. Not a battle plan, not a decree, a rehearsal for the day's first irritation. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, Marcus Aurelius wrote, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. He wasn't being pessimistic. He was commanding an empire on a war front, and he knew exactly what a normal day contained, and he refused to be ambushed by it. He went further. These people, he reasoned, act badly out of ignorance, not malice. They don't actually know what's good and what's bad, so they grasp for status, credit, comfort, the wrong things the only way they know how. And because he had already seen the nature of what's actually good and what's actually ugly, nothing they did could touch what mattered to him. I can neither be injured by any of them, he wrote, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman. Read that twice. He's not saying the rude email won't happen. He's saying he already decided before breakfast that it wouldn't be allowed to set his temperature for the day. Most people do the opposite. They wake up with no plan for friction, meet the first difficult person of the day totally unarmed, and spend the next 4 hours recovering, replaying the exchange, drafting the reply they didn't send, letting one bad interaction rent space in their head until lunch. The emperor built the armor at 5 in the morning. Everyone else builds it badly in the middle of the fight. This isn't just an old idea dressed up. Ryan Holiday, who has spent a career translating Stoic practice for people running companies and armies of their own, frames discipline itself as the foundation every other virtue depends on. Not a nice-to-have, the load-bearing wall. Self-control isn't the boring virtue. It's the one that makes the interesting ones possible. You don't get courage or patience or good judgment under pressure without first having the discipline to not react on impulse. And here's what the research on grit adds to the Stoic rehearsal. Angela Duckworth's work on high performers, West Point cadets, spelling bee finalists, teachers in the hardest classrooms, found that what separated the ones who lasted wasn't raw talent. It was a specific, practiced response to friction. Treat the obstacle as expected, not exceptional. The gritty ones didn't have fewer hard days. They just didn't waste energy being surprised by them. Put the three together. Marcus Aurelius names the friction before it arrives. Holiday tells you discipline is what lets you hold the line when it does. Duckworth shows you what it costs. Over years, when you don't, you spend your best energy on shock instead of on the work. Think about the version of your actual day this maps onto. 8:15. Someone replies to your carefully worded email with 2 dismissive lines. Or a colleague walks into the meeting and takes credit for the plan you built last week. You didn't choose that moment. Nobody does. But you did or didn't choose to rehearse it at 6:30 over coffee before it had a face and a name. Notice what Marcus Aurelius did not write. He didn't write a script for revenge or a plan to avoid these people altogether or a fantasy where the day simply contains no friction. He wrote a description of exactly what was coming, in specific terms, the busybody, the ungrateful, the deceitful, and then he decided in advance what power each of them would have over him. None. Not because he'd stopped caring what happened. Because he'd already located the one thing under his control before the day tried to convince him otherwise. That distinction is the whole hinge. You cannot control whether the difficult person shows up. You cannot control the dismissive reply, the stolen credit, the cut in line. What you can control, the only thing you ever could, is the 10 seconds after it happens, before you decided how to respond. Rehearsal doesn't shrink that window. It just makes sure you're the one standing in it when it opens, instead of your temper. Notice what the emperor never asked for. Not a world without difficult people. Not fewer rude emails, not fairer colleagues, not a calmer inbox. He asked for something smaller and far more available. The decision, made in advance, about what he'd let land. That's the part almost everyone skips. They wait for the friction to show up and then try to compose themselves in real time in front of the person who caused it. The worst possible moment to be deciding anything. The emperor did the deciding earlier, alone, when nothing was at stake yet. There's a reason this holds up after 2,000 years of very different mornings. It never depended on the world getting easier. It depended on one person, before the noise started, quietly refusing to hand his temper to whoever showed up first. So before you open your inbox today, run the rehearsal. Name it plainly. I will meet someone difficult today, maybe more than one. Then decide now what you won't hand them. Not your focus. Not your tone for the rest of the morning. Not the hour you were going to spend on the work that actually matters. When the moment comes, and it will come probably before 10, you won't be composing yourself for the first time in front of them. You'll already have decided. You'll just be following through. That's the whole discipline. Not becoming a person nothing ever bothers. Becoming a person who isn't ambushed by the ordinary. Marcus Aurelius rehearsed this before every sunrise for an empire he ruled at war. You can rehearse it for one inbox. Tell me below, what's the friction you're naming before it finds you today? I read every one.